So, for the most part, I'm a storyteller, and a lot of the poems that I'll do specifically later on will be stories. But I'm going to try and veer away from that for a second and do some poems that highlight some other styles. You're blessed that you have two other poets here who are going to show you a lot of really, really good work. And I'm going to brag on them in just a minute. So they'll show you other styles. I'm just going to try and show you other styles. But I have this terrific coach, Blues, who was here, I think, a month ago? Yeah. It's all Blues? Good. Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, the one-man peanut gallery.
Thank you.
We've both been on Blues' team at different times. Blues actually coached us to 2 national championships, so we trust anything Blues tells us. But in this particular instance, I showed up to practice one day and I said, hey, I got a new poem. And he says, I don't want to hear it. I want you to write something that's not a story. And I was heartbroken and threw a temper tantrum.
He didn't even hear it before you said that?
No, he was just like, no, I mean, he heard it, but it was like, okay.
Gotcha.
Now write me something that's not a story.
Gotcha.
So I threw a temper tantrum and he stuck by his guns. And he said, when you show up to practice next week, have a poem that's not a story. And so I have this. I am Generation X. I am overprescribed and undereducated. I am addicted to sneakers and politics. I get high on life. I am jonesing for the next time I see God. I am addicted to the love that is around me. I am a gospel record skipping. I am forever late, but always on time. I am her sunshine. I am trying to be a better person than I was yesterday. I am not the player. I am the game. I am a sum of parts. But I am not yet whole. I am a sense of humor that is best served cold. I am the hardest note to hold. I am Tito Puente's last drum roll. I am hip-hop's last living soul. I am a one-man revolution that is taking applications, looking for basic instruction between Genesis and Revelation. I'm a coward that is balling his fist. I'm a champion that's sitting the bench. I'm a perfect score in a pinch. I am made of mortar set in stone, and they call me a breakfast of bricks. And if all what I eat, then I am lucky to be concrete. Birthed by ink, raised by sin and salvation, grew in this cradle of Bible Belt creation. I'm a recovering depressive. I'm cocky and I'm clean. I'm still learning my lessons. I am fresh and on the scene. I inhale on page. I exhale on stage. I'm a storyteller. I'm a goal setter. I'm a rule bender and a sinner. I am rarely near my center. I am opinionated. And most of the time I'm wrong, but I am learning to see me for the first time. I am growing younger by the moment. My name is Carlos, and I'm a poet. Yeah. This is always the thing I forget to say the first time, and I remember to say it after that poem. If y'all need me to slow down, please say so, because I love to do my poems very fast. We actually have... We all come from the slam community, and in a poetry slam, has anybody ever been to a poetry slam? Anybody? Yes. Yeah? Where?
It was like it's a middle school thing.
Oh, okay. In a poetry slam, you have 3 minutes and 10 seconds to perform your poem. So when they call you up to the microphone, they would say, hey, welcome, Tavis Brunson. And Tavis Brunson would walk up to the stage, and he would square to the audience, and he would deliver his poem, and he would leave. There's no time for an introduction. There's no time for anything like that. You just got to be on it. And at the end of the poem, and this is where I struggle here. In a slam, when I'm done with a poem, I leave. Y'all know the poem's over because I left. But here, I know the ending of the poem is coming. You don't. And I have to figure out how to signify that to you without obviously leaving. And all of that comes out looking like... which is awkward, obviously. I was at a conference with a friend of mine. His name is Asia. He's a phenomenal poet from Miami. And he was performing in a room full of... You from Miami?
I'm from Miami.
Okay.
I've heard of him.
He's the man. And I'm a South Florida boy too, so...
Oh, you are?
Yes, I'm from Tampa. It's not quite South Florida. Yeah.
Can we get back to the show, please?
I'm talking to my people. I have family in Little Havana, and yeah, I love South Florida. Thank you, Tex.
You're welcome.
But I'm in the back of this room. Asia is performing in front of thousands of people. He's performing 3 poems, and at the end of the poem, he just does this. I thought that is the most badass thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's so much more obvious than that. So the next college show I did, I showed up and I said, this is it. This is how I'm going to end my poem. So after the first poem, after the second poem, after the third poem, and then I have a question in the back of the room. Yes, ma'am. Do you have to do that with every poem? Is that a poetry thing? Is that a necessity? Really? So now we're back to... You can't win. We were talking about Long Island earlier. Do y'all remember...
Excuse me, guys.
Sure.
I'm going to answer the ambiance. There we go.
There you go. Now I got to do love poems.
Poems about the government.
I need a beret. Y'all remember about a year and a half ago when they had to emergency land the plane in the Hudson?
Yeah.
Sullenberger and this.
Yeah.
So I have a small fear of flying.
Small.
I've gotten much better, actually. I'm very good now, but at the time it was rough. And I'm a CNN junkie. I stay on CNN all day long at home. I watch CNN all day long. CNN is my homepage to my laptop. I'm legitimately on CNN every moment that I can. It is a legitimate addiction. But this particular day, I hadn't seen CNN all day. I'd been flying to Long Island to perform at LIU. And just like I did at the beginning of the show, I encouraged all the kids at that show. Y'all aren't kids, excuse me, but you know what I mean. I encourage all the kids at the show. If at any point you want to, say, let's start a conversation, et cetera, et cetera. And then this young man in the middle of my set said, "Hey, you heard they crashed a plane in the Hudson today?" What? I said, "Where was it leaving from?" He said, LaGuardia. I said, "Oh, that's where I leave from tomorrow." Where was it headed to? Charlotte, North Carolina. Really? and what airline was it on? U.S. Air. I'm screwed. And I say that to say this. I hate to fly because they start off every flight the same way in case of an emergency. Whether it be turbulence, terrorists, or engine failure, they tell you that oxygen mask will be released from overhead. Please place this mask over your face and remember to secure your own before you help those around you. But when the emergency finally happens, y'all, that's not what people do. Kind of like the older couple sitting across from me, who I can tell is still very much in love by the way he holds her trembling, flight-fearing hands, or how the laugh lines in his cheeks are stronger than the stress lines that cross his brow, or by the way they whisper wishes to one another. That if this plane ever went down, they would climb into each other. Because they want to die with the taste of their lover's skin soaking across their memory in case of an emergency. And the cabin loses electricity. They tell me that a lighted pathway will appear following the aisle, and I feel like standing up and saying, "I'm sorry, y'all, but that's my fault. I brought a lot of extra baggage on board. I think my sins may be weighing down this plane." But sins are almost sacred in the case of the mother and son who sit in front of me. See, she lost a husband, he lost a father once while their son was sick, laying in a hospital bed suffering from a disease that made his heart too big. But fathers know best. Like when this father knew that he and his son had the same blood type. And if the doctors couldn't find a transplant in time, he knew no doctor would refuse his son his own heart if he was to commit suicide. And he hung himself so that the son could become the man he'd always seen in the back of those little 8-year-old eyes in a state of an emergency. Kind of like the doubled over ancient woman who sits directly next to me. A Jewish German woman who hid in Poland during World War II, pregnant and alone, scared that one day her neighbors would tell the Nazis of her existence, knowing before long she would hear German soldiers stomping up the steps like they were jogging the nerves in her spine. So every morning she would pick up her only earthly possession, a half-beaten cello. She would hold it up close to her bulging body and she would play. She would play "I Love You" into every note she's ever known because she knows she may not get to see her son grow. Y'all, she is a survivor. Kind of like the flight attendant who's been talking all this time. He prays to a God he's decided to believe in, even though on most days he doesn't think God believes in him back, and I can see his entire story from sitting right there in the 6th row. He couldn't run from his gay-bashing father fast enough, so now he flies. He's wanted to get away ever since he was first called a pansy. Matter of fact, he's probably been called a pansy more than I've ever been called honest. And honestly, y'all, I think it's the other way around. Because on most days, I am a coward. We have been practicing panic our entire lives, y'all, not passion. So when it comes to sink or to swim, most of us look under our seats for life preservers and we decide to float. If asked to brace for impact, please place your head between your knees and kiss your butt goodbye. Because in case of an emergency, in case of certainty, one of these days we're all going to die. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the rest of your lives, and please begin to prepare yourselves for a state of emergency.